All right, everybody, welcome back to yet another episode of the Throne Podcast. I'm joined with Chap, Cade, and the one and only Ben J. Nissim. Boys, how we doing today?
Doing great. It's fresh off the Texas event, and I'm excited. We got a great special guest here with us today. It's gonna be a really interesting podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Chap, Ben, how are you guys doing?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
I mean, it's been good. I'm still really tired from the weekend. We're recording this on like Tuesday, and I traveled back yesterday, and still it always takes me a couple of days to come back from events to like get to like 100% energy because it's just streaming, doing the flank sub, just streaming like 12 hours just takes a lot out of me. But now I'm feeling good after the weekend.
Yeah.
It's a fun one.
Yeah. And Chap, you sadly, the first event you missed, so you're now banned because we won the whole event. So you're banned.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, so obviously, for those who do not know, Ben, you're normally there pretty early for the flank, right? Like you're normally like when we get there, like because obviously like the flank, we didn't really get to see much in Boston, but for Raleigh and the Optic Major, especially the Optic Major, you were in the Challengers Pit ish area, and you're always like there before every single person.
Yeah, I mean, I usually get in whenever doors open and just kind of go live. It's usually like either 9 or 10 a.m. and then I kind of run until 11:30, 12. Then we usually switch over to like Tommy's stream, where we actually started this event. We use like restreams. So we were live on my channel, we were live on Tommy's channel, Chris's channel, it's Pat's channel. We switch over at that point. But yeah, no, I end up like sometimes I'm there from like 9 a.m. to like 9 p.m. if not longer. So yeah, no, it's crazy. But I enjoy it, man. It's a great time to sort of connect with the community and stream. So, we just grind.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's it's kind of why especially like we wanted to get you on the podcast because whether it's your personal channel on Twitch or your channel on YouTube, and especially at the events, you are always the one who you're very big in the challenger scene. I believe you're one of the people or one of the creators who show the most attention and support to the challengers channel, like I was talking to you earlier about. So we do truly appreciate that. And so I guess we can kind of start off like asking everyone like what got you into esports, specifically Call of Duty, that kind of eventually led you into when you were with Esports Engine and then now the flank full time.
Yeah, I mean, I played Call of Duty since like Call of Duty 2, and I think some point around like 2012 or 2013. This is wherever Black Ops 2 Champs was. People I was playing Call of Duty with were like, "Yo, there's this sort of Champs event going on. Just check it out." So I started watching on Twitch, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Kind of started casually following from there, watching the occasional, but not too much. And I really got into the scene probably around, really into the scene probably near the middle to end of Ghost. I became a mod in Clay's chat. That was kind of like my first go around. I did a little bit of stuff for Optic Intel at the time. Got close to sort of Clay and his squad, and then the FaZe boys, and then from there, I got involved with FaZe management at some point near the end of IW, like after the team had broken up. Obviously, the attached Clayster to my Indian team, because Crowder had left to go play for Echo Fox. For Champs, and obviously they left Clay, so Ian was like, it was Ian, Pierce, Dylan, and Tommy. They didn't really have anybody else, so
Yeah.
I got involved there, and then did that for like 2 years. Started doing Fortnite stuff and FIFA stuff for FaZe. And then once CDL, the first offseason CDL hit, and FaZe, obviously, and FaZe became a thing, and sort of FaZe got rid of COD. I was sort of in a weird position at the time. Then the former MLG guys had made Esports Engine. And they hit me up and they're like, "Yo, we're starting our own company. We're really interested in you joining us and doing this, this, and this." And I went to my boss at the time, Eric Anderson, who's head of FaZe Esports. I was like, "What do you think I should do?" He's like, "Oh, absolutely take the job." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "Okay." So I did that for about 2 years. And it was fun. I just think, and I didn't plan this, but the flank when Tom retired before the beginning of Cold War, and he was trying to figure out what he was going to do during the retirement. He's like, "Yo, would you be down to do a show with me?" I was like, "Okay." I didn't think, when I took the job at Esports Engine, that I would sort of become this content creator. Like that was never sort of on the comprehension, but we started doing the show and went from getting like 500 viewers to, I don't know, 1,000, and then it was 5,000, and now we get like easily 10 to 20,000 per episode, depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
And so around sort of last spring, I kind of sort of had to make a choice of like, do I want to really go full into the content thing? Because I was kind of half in, half out. I couldn't give it a full time just because I had another job on the side, and difficulty in that is obviously I'm trying not to like step on eggshells because we were also doing CDL stuff at the time. So I'm like, I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I decided to do the content thing full time. I talked to Adam F about it, and he was like super supportive. He's like, well, you know, just do you like take the opportunity. So I did. And yeah, I've been doing full-time content since then, and you know, do the flank. I do a bunch of other shows, and I do a show with Chris Crowder now on Mondays. And yeah, that's really my journey sort of into esports, and then to like this point where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly like kind of if it's like that's how it feels like it always happens, like that like spontaneous moment where it's like you weren't planning on any of this to happen and it like just kind of falls right into your lap. It was kind of like, I mean, not necessarily like a similar story, but I mean, for us, when getting into Challengers was this past December, and Doug, like Censor, put out a tweet quoting one of our team members, Man, one of the players, and saying like, "Yo, can you guys, some organization needs to represent these guys. They're like the number 1 seeded team in EU right now, and like." They're the best over there, and it would be a shame to not have them at Raleigh to compete against the best. And if it wasn't for just seeing like Doug's tweet at that exact time, it was like 4 days before Raleigh even took place, and it was like, it's like now or never do we decide to like just go like dive straight in, and that's exactly what happened. Like none of it was planned. We had no idea what we were doing at the beginning, and it was just like another one of those like spontaneous like take a risk stories, and it's working out pretty well.
Yeah, I would say after this weekend, you guys are probably doing pretty good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a journey. I mean, especially like we are. I mean, we've been at every event now. Especially, you know, we're coming in as diehard Call of Duty fans, and we had issues with Furious with documentation on the first, and all of a sudden we went from, you know, we had our GTA server. Team Notorious was kind of like undergoing with some content and stuff, but you know, we didn't have that jump. We had to plan for a Challengers team in the future and eventually lead into a compound, and then all of a sudden we had Haggy on our team. And so like you got to watch like someone at the level of Haggy playing for your team, and that was kind of like, you know, the other guys. It was awesome. And then we picked up Metals, who in the Modern Warfare 2019 season was on Toronto Ultra. And then obviously Boston, that was just a very, very cold event. Didn't really turn out well. And then, you know, we kind of, as you know, I'm sure you've seen us, we roll up squad deep to every Challengers event. Proper Cast called us. What did he call us, Cade? He just says, "I see a giant sea of yellow running around."
Yeah, basically.
The people see all your jackets and hoodies, and they see your guys' squad come from a mile away. So
yeah, so, and that's what we're there to do. We're there to network. We're there to meet people. We've made, especially in Texas, prior to winning, we've made a lot of connections and such. And then, you know, it kind of gets better and better, and we talk to the right people more and more. Kind of get some input from people in the scene on growing an organization, growing a Challengers team. I had a pretty long conversation with the head coach at NYSL, D-Real, for a while, because obviously he's a big supporter of the Challengers team, and it's kind of, that's what it's all about. So I guess it can kind of like lead us into like, you obviously are, you know, a big or I wouldn't say spokesperson, but your content, a lot of the time when, you know, major Challengers events happen, you dedicate an entire video to that, and as well on your streams you do that. So what's kind of your thought process, like, especially with obviously you have players like Too Real and specifically Dan Ghosty, because I know you guys talk a lot about this on the flank, and your other podcasts, that like normally a lot of these Challengers players getting picked up and such, you see them going to you know, teams that you were expecting a change, and maybe they're with contracts and stuff, there wasn't a bunch they can do. So when Dan Ghosty kind of got pulled, especially to people at the caliber of Optics who, correct me if I'm wrong, Cade, they've historically never ever done a Challengers player ever.
I don't believe so.
And so what do you think that we're starting to, it's getting a little bit more attention and stuff, and recruiters and analytic people for these orgs are starting to pay attention a little bit more to Challengers rather than what's already in the scene?
I don't know. I mean, people have been making. I think the issue with Challengers for a while, it depends on the role you're on.
Yeah.
Like, you got to fry to get noticed. I think in the case of Optic, it's actually kind of a simple story. I think Parasites told it basically like that, when they decided they wanted to move on from Millie, he was good friends with Dashi, and Dashi hit him up, and he kind of gave him a list of players. And I think Bruce and Ant at that point, Shotzi and Dashi kind of watched VOD, and they saw Dan's gameplay.
Yeah.
And kind of the rest was history from there. I mean, teams have picked up. I mean, there's a lot of Challengers players that made their ways on the CDL rosters the last couple of years, many of which are like superstars in the league, right? Like Pred got noticed in Challengers, got picked up. Hydra was in Challengers, got picked up, and that's like what, 2 of the 3 top MVP candidates around Scrappy. Yeah. Pride in Challengers got for Toronto Ultra NA, and then they called him up to the big team. So like, I mean, it's not the path, the pipeline's there. There's certain squads like Thieves or Atlanta FaZe that like don't need to kind of rely on a Challengers pipeline. Optic for a long time, just because they always got the pick of whoever they wanted from a free agent standpoint. And they weren't really doing anything crazy in terms of roster changes in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
So I think that's a long way of saying like I don't think like anything's really changed on that front. I think people have always been poaching top of Challengers even during the CWL era.
Yeah.
I just think this Dan Ghosty move is just sort of it's just an example of an org that hadn't picked up a Challengers player like ever. I can't imagine. I'm trying to think about Optic Gaming's history pre-CDL, and I can't think of any like CWL example of them picking up like a player who's like a top AM.
Yeah.
Straight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. It makes sense, and it's really good to see this happen, especially like especially now like where we are in the Challengers, especially in the EU scene, and it's pretty cool, especially with like Beans and Hixie. Like they're pretty close with a lot of our players, so like getting to see those guys and have these people to root for, especially for the success that Beans and Hixie and Dan Ghosty all had this weekend itself. So it's really good to see these players come up and succeed from the Challengers. And I guess kind of like it kind of leads me into the thought of obviously I said this to I hold shifts and proper, like from Raleigh to Optic, we have had an increase in production from a We Are Clutch GG standpoint. Every single major, like this one, they did the entire weekend. They were out on the floor, like doing their thing, their broadcasts in person with Andy and Alan there. So do you think that maybe the CDL or the scene are kind of starting to notice that the Challengers scene is a little bit overlooked at some certain times, especially with like production level. Obviously, like the We Are Clutch guys absolutely kill it. We love all of them over there, but they're starting to kind of bring them in more and kind of make the Challenger scene more of a scene, which was our original goal. No, that was like a really long question, but
no, it's all good. I mean, I think on the CDL side, I think they've always. I mean, this goes back to pre-CDL. Like I think there's always been kind of this path to pro thing. I think even during the MLG era, when I used to work esports engine, like, and they would always talk about, players like Hook, for example, that they identified very early on when Kyle was playing for like Stunner back in the era, maybe pre that, like Zuma, like players they knew they were going to be superstars and like how they could from a broadcast or production angle help kind of illuminate those people. I think on the CDL side, a part of it has come down to, I think there was instability in the pro format, and so their focus was on cleaning that up.
yeah.
And then once they got to a stable format, which they're at kind of now, with this sort of multi-stage situation, I think they can put more energy on the comp ops side to Challengers. I would say on the broadcast side, I think it just comes down to the fact that the real clutch guys are really efficient at what they do. And they're able to maximize the production wins based on what they put in. I think them especially this event, being able to broadcast from Friday, even though Friday matches the first couple are always for top teams, usually like 2-0s.
Yeah.
Being able to give the airtime to maybe some players that are not as well known, I think is really key. So I'm excited to see. I know I'm really good friends with Shift as well.
Yeah, he's
I'm really excited to see what they keep doing throughout the year as we build towards, ideally amateur champs on creating the best product on broadcast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
how
they're
I
great.
feel. I mean, Shift, we had a long conversation with him in Boston. Kind of, it was like our first prepared event because obviously in Raleigh we had 4 days. I did manage to get really awful jerseys made with our old logo, but we weren't as prepared. So when we were able to get into like Boston and stuff, like we had some good conversation with him and like thanked him because people like excuse me, people like We Are Clutch, challengers, Intel, the rotation, and people like you guys who are kind of giving some more light to the scene not only helps these players get their name out there more, it puts a little bit to the scene and hopefully encourages some more orgs to enter because I know obviously like right now, Cade, you can lead into what you wanted to talk about with the esports recession, but like we are seeing even some challengers orgs leave right now, like Team War and Elevate.
Yeah, so that basically is like my question to you is like you've been around esports for a while now. Have you ever even seen anything like this in like from a stance of like everyone on Twitter's talking about it like that esports is just in general in a recession. With LA, the whole drama going on with like the LAG pulling out, from like what we know a little bit more of in the challenger scene, like Team War and Elevate just pulled out, and it's also a little just like disheartening to see it coming like happening now because Elevate, for example, on the EU side of things is technically still like the #1 seed in EU, and it wasn't for Aphelion picking them up like again last second before the event. Like these top teams and challengers they're not now going to have any funding to even get to these majors to showcase their skills. So like have you ever seen anything like this, and like do you have any input on like how do people basically survive through something like this?
Well, I mean, the knockdown effects in the industry are part of just sort of the greater, like, not to use a big word, like macroeconomic trend going on.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of the bigger orgs. We're talking about, like, let's say, not some franchise teams, but in general, all these orgs, drive money, usually from family offices, VC funds, athletes, celebrities, etc. But obviously, as economic conditions have changed, I don't think that money is easily accessible. I also think that a lot of investors in some of these companies were sold on 4 or 5x returns or whatever, and didn't get that over the 4 or 5 year period when this is all going on between like 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, etc. And so now, people are a little bit hesitant to get in the space. And I think that's had a knockdown effect on top of the fact of, the expectation on the player side in terms of salaries, even for amateur players, they can be difficult.
Yeah.
T&E costs have gone up. Like hotels are way more expensive now. Flight prices have gone up. Like food costs have gone up. So your overall like expenses to run a team have increased over even the last like 1 or 2 years. So
Yeah.
Everything's inflated.
and I think this is just the thing is esports is so young that these economic cycles happen. Like I'm only 32, so like it's not like I've been around. I'm like Warren Buffett. I've been around for like, multiple economic cycles, so maybe my advice is not that good. But like things just gonna happen.
Yeah.
The global world, the global economy is sort of in a weird spot. It's not the sort of pre-COVID like boom that everybody had, and sort of people are readjusting. I think on the publisher side, things are a little bit better just because those companies are larger and they're able to sort of pivot. I think for everybody else, especially the team side of the business, it's going to just be cold for a while. I think eventually it'll heat back up, but the LAG situation is a good example of, look, I think the Guard were a cool organization, but we're probably spending a lot of money on things and not getting a lot of return.
Yeah.
And then eventually even a family like the Kroenke family, which their net worth's a lot, they have a lot of sports teams, probably look in the books like this doesn't really make sense for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate because of the knockdown, but I'm hoping this is just a, you know, 1 or 2 year cycle and we get back to growing again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I know the Guard had a really successful Valorant team before Valorant also joined them in franchising, which is why it was kind of like a surprise with the Guard, the fact that they were just dropping out or trying to sell their spot.
Yeah. I mean, when you go in and like you spend all this CDL money, especially like it's very tough right now, especially for like your original teams, because like if you go back to like when the NFL or NBA and all these things started, like franchising is not something. Oh, Ben is now an OBS logo.
This I got an issue there now. I have an issue with my webcam where it, like flickers.
Yeah.
I just started noticing it should be better now, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
We always have an issue because we use our
Yeah.
background blur. Like I'll randomly just like my whole thing's
Oh, it's all
blurred.
good. It's all good.
But like I feel like that like this is going to happen in franchising, especially like you were saying, like the CDL is trying to perfect these things, and a lot of people like like there's changes that maybe the community asks for and stuff that people want that might not exactly happen, but like in reality, like when you franchise something, it is going to have it's going to have some ups and a lot of downs when starting before things really become profitable. I mean, even like you're starting to see like these we always use the example of like how the NFL's on Twitch now on Thursdays because of Amazon. Like it's kind of we're starting to get into this virtual world and stuff, and like things are going to adapt and grow. So it's like I think that with challengers heating up a little bit with production, shout out again to the We Are Clutch GG squad and all their casters and workers, and then the CDL with their productions, with the flank, with you guys doing that, with Scump and his watch party, with Haggy and Doug who do theirs. Like it's starting to get like talked about a lot more, and every single person creating the content. I really do think kind of like the key to victory overall is content, right? Someone stumbles upon your channel, or someone stumbles upon Censor's channel, or Tactical Rab, Breaking Point, whatever. Like it's growing fans from a higher aspect rather than just like the CDL Twitch, right? So I think that we'll eventually see a pretty big uprise in the CDL. Like you said, maybe it's 1 year, 2 years until the recession kind of slows down. Maybe it's longer, maybe it's shorter. But in reality, I think the one thing people can keep doing is remember, like ROIs aren't going to always be great when you first start, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I just think you can't. People like to say this comparison between like pro sports and esports on the team side, and like it's not a good comparison because pro teams, take the New York Yankees for example, right?
yeah,
New York Yankees have a baseball stadium that they have 82 games a season in.
yeah,
They get gate, they get merchandise, they get food at the stadium. I don't remember the terms of that stadium they built. I think the city kind of, it's irrelevant, but there was some of their money that put in some cost to build the stadium, whatever. But they have all these income streams, like your average org doesn't have a venue they operate,
Yeah.
right? So what's available to you is difficult. You have potentially building up a merch, you have partners and sponsorships, but you have a lot of L's on your P&Ls, right?
yeah,
Player expenses are really high. And so I just think a recalibration of team business is probably where things are going to go.
mm-hmm.
I think orgs like FaZe Optic and Thieves are ahead on it in the sense of they understand that there's an intersection between entertainment and esports, and that the content and the growth of your players as brands helps bring in more potential opportunities, whether they're revenue streams or just one-off activations.
Yeah.
It's probably the way, and obviously that's difficult on the esports athletes themselves because not all of them want to do content or this and that. And you can supplement that with other creators, but I just think where the industry is at is just the current path for a lot of orgs of just, hey, we're here, we're just going to keep taking losses year after year and just keep getting other people to come in and invest. Like eventually people are going to figure out like, maybe the growth is a lot slower than we expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a solid point, truly. I mean, like, we were like talking about that, especially like a lot of orgs, like you can't come in and expect an ROI off of, some tournament wins or stuff, like, right. Like that should be kind of like the icing on the cake, really. Like when you're getting these going to these events, especially from a challenger's perspective, you're going to these events, like you're networking, you're meeting people. Like that's how we end up getting Kels as our content creator, because she obviously talked to people in the challenger scene about organizations and stuff, and like, you know, people see us there, and it's kind of like in reality the people are what are going to be, you know, making these orgs their money. It's not just the wins and stuff and just the sponsors. You can't really heavily rely on those.
Agreed.
Chap and Cade, anything else you guys got on the top of your head?
Yeah, just basically just like to kind of just wrap everything up. Like how was your experience at did you actually, I know I saw you guys on the flank talking about a little bit, like I don't think people understood actually how loud that venue was whenever like Optic specifically was playing. Like that venue was pretty crazy. And I've had the pleasure of going to I went to Toronto last year, and me and Barrett went back to like World War II champs in Columbus. Yeah. So I've had like the opportunity to go to a couple of the venues as like a spectator, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Especially now having the team like be brought out on stage whenever they won. It was actually like insanely awesome to be a part of. But how was your experience at Texas?
Well, I was mostly in the expo hall, so I didn't really get a chance to, unfortunately, like, go over a lot too. The other side, I mean, I was there last year when I was not doing the flank last year. I was backstage, and like, listen, ESA is a giant box. We were talking about this earlier on Scrap Time. The show I was doing with Crowder with Naval Solana too. Like, it's pretty loud in there. I think Ant's probably the best authority because he's sitting out there in the crowd for almost all of it. He would say like it's definitely top 5 loudest, might be top 3. He's not sure, probably not louder than say like London Copper Box, but also London Copper Box. They also drink all the booze out of the venue. So, and they like, and those fans, like, I would say the difference between like UK and American fans. UK fans like also chant all the time. American fans, you do notice like when like control happens, like they're not really cheering. First map, they're loud.
Yeah.
Third map, maybe not so much. I thought it was great. You know, I'm good friends with Corey Dunn, who obviously on the Optic side operates that building, at least from the city of Arlington. And so last year they just had the ESA side. This year they had the Expo Hall side as well. And it was a great experience. I think the limiter for them almost is like they're an outlier in that they can't expand that building any further, right?
Yeah.
They completely sold out of tickets, and so they end up in this weird situation where there's really good Expo Hall side, but you really also can't then give the Challengers players guaranteed tickets because you want to make sure the room is full. So they're almost in like we want to do cool stuff, we may not be able to do it fully in the building. But I thought it was a great experience. I think I would be surprised if there's like an anchor event every year at some form. There's a major in Arlington because it's always going to be well attended. It's always going to sell out. I thought Challengers was great. As far as I know, talking to people, I don't know how you all felt with your players, but like the event was pretty clean. I know it ran long, but I think the series is kind of going long.
Yeah.
And players got to take a bathroom break. They took 20 minutes, but
and the servers went down at one point.
Servers went down, which is not ideal. But other than that, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like the coolest thing. I mean, when obviously, did you see the Challengers venue in Boston?
I walked over there when they were building it.
Yeah.
And it, I think probably that it ended up there just out of just kind of what space is available in that area. So it's not probably an ideal setup.
Yeah.
And also I heard, and you guys probably attest to, I know it was really cold there during that event. So this one would be a little bit better just by default because of those conditions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my answer to that question. Like I don't really think there's much in the New York event had the same problem last year. Like want to do a Challengers event, like here you can't fit 12 stations there.
Yeah.
Same thing for that theater space is really nice. An MJ Music Hall, but there is, even if you had taken over the lounge we were in with the flank, for example, that Mass Mutual Lounge, even that wouldn't have been big enough to fit 12 stations in. So
yeah. No, I mean it was a cool experience being in Boston though, because like being in Fenway was like insane, and plus like although like, you know, like the Optic one, it was nice because you had the ping pong, you had the basketball, you had a bunch of food places, so you had a lot of room. It kind of like similar-ish to Raleigh, I guess. Obviously they even had more, but the Boston event was a pretty cool experience though, because it was like Call of Duty. There was no like running around. Like it was like COD everywhere. Plus, you can bounce around to see more games a little bit easier and stuff. But like this Texas event, it was the coolest event I've ever been to. Especially on the Challengers thing, getting to watch. Like obviously there wasn't a ton of fans, but like getting to like even like being on main stage, especially during the finals, having like 2 little rows of stands and kind of being able to sit there and root on the team, which a win. Oh my gosh. I was supposed to shave my head bald, which actually funny that you said the same thing. I sent that when we signed the players. I said, if you guys ever get me a LAN win, so back in December, I said, if you ever get me a LAN win, I'll shave my head bald. And they were like, all right. And they held me to it. But then when I got back, we only had like a single razor. And I was like, so you guys want me to do it? And Metals goes, wait, you were being serious? You would have done that? I was like, yeah, like, do you want to do it? And then Maple goes, you got way too good a hair. Why don't you just get a tattoo instead?
It's good. I wasn't that lucky.
Yeah.
I wasn't lucky. I made the bet, and then they won, and MC chirped me on stage. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow.
I was just saying, Sully
Yeah.
Sully was definitely on you.
MC was down for that, but no, I feel you guys. I think the rest of the events on the Challenger side should be interesting. Obviously, I don't know what they're gonna do for Major 4 yet. Obviously,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like they're gonna have space for that. Major 5, I don't think they've announced what venue it's in yet. But last year, Challengers was pretty cool in there. When they did it at Matamay last year, which is what, again, I don't know what the venue is for this year, but last year they did it, and it was basically like in a basketball or like
Ice
court
hockey.
area,
The CDL was ice hockey.
Yeah,
The CDL was
was
ice hockey, but right next to it, like it's a whole athletic center for the university. Like they have there's like a weight room on like the second floor of that building. You like go up the escalators to go to the ice rink, and like on the floor below is like the work area. On that level is like a wrestling basketball gym, and they had Challengers in there, so it's like super close to the stage, but it wasn't like necessarily in the same room. But that setup was cool last year. I assume Toronto's gonna do the same thing again. Like they'll go all out. I think the expectation now for all the event holders is outside, like assuming that you have the space for it. The league really wants the Challengers activations, and really support the opens. I would love to see, from my perspective, I'd love to see the league explore for Challengers Elite doing the finals on that in LAN summer, right?
Yeah.
For every split. I think that'd be a really cool add-on. So that'd be sort of like the next iteration of that process.
Yeah, no,
that'd be
absolutely.
awesome.
I mean, that was literally like, especially like we haven't made it to a Sunday yet, and obviously like we're a newer org and stuff, but like getting to that Sunday at an, obviously like I got into Call of Duty because of Optic, and getting to win at an Optic event, get the medal, and like actually them having a ceremony was like, it was super cool, like getting to walk out of that main stage, especially like Metals was in the CDL. Eric, obviously he's still young, but like Chilton Maple, they've been like these like Challengers goats. Maple is now the #1 most winning Challengers LAN player, with 3. There's no one else that has 3 on LAN. So he obviously, his ego's through the roof now. But like getting them, like I was super happy for them, getting them having them walk out, especially they weren't expecting that. You can go back if you rewatch it and see what Maple was wearing when he walked out. He was not dressed for the occasion, but it was super cool. So winning that was like really like a whirlwind of emotions, especially the 1v3. Did you hear about the Wee Man 1v3 on Standy and Co?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I heard about it. We heard it behind us, and I saw it. Like we were like right behind Future Station 1, but like so like anything we heard, and I had Twitter open the whole time. So like I followed the rotation, whatever, and they're always close. But there were a lot of really cool moments of this event. Yeah, I thought that was a really good gesture from the Optic team to bring you guys out. I don't think that's been done before. I think they even did it like opening launch weekend.
Yeah. The
CDL back in the moment for 2019, but they haven't done it in a while. And I thought it was a really cool gesture to give the moment for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it was incredible. Players were super pumped, and overall, like winning that, I mean, that's a dream come true, especially, you know, for us who are, we're pretty young kids. We're all just mid-20s, and to be able to kind of like hear people cheering our name, that when we started Team Notorious in 2018, it was like we were just posting these little things, like thinking we were super like cool and stuff. Then all of a sudden you have like thousands of people chanting our name, walking out on stage. So it was pretty incredible. But yeah, other than that, Ben, do you have any, don't want to hold you here super long. Do you have any closing things, anything, maybe, tips or anything for orgs in the challengers, or any creators, in challengers, or anything about the CDL?
I mean, I think I think content's the one thing about the challenger space that can be controlled. So, I try to do my best. I think, shout out to Weird Clutch GG, like they obviously do. Start off doing a lot of CCL stuff. They've been getting more and more coverage on the CDL side now that they're doing the elite broadcast. They do the qualifiers. They try and do as much cup stuff as they can. They got people, and then any other like streams that people do around the challenger scene. I think for challengers players, my advice is always, like, if you can stream, it's not always easy as a competitor, so totally understand. But it will help you get noticed. And as we've seen, like, challengers players have come in the CDL world and won events and been all-stars and grown their brands, made a lot of money. So like getting that exposure is just really key.
Yeah.
Would be my one piece of advice.
Absolutely. So, well, yeah, real quick before we close it out, I'd like to do a quick shout out to our sponsors, aiohub.gg, where it's AI matchmaking for gamers around the world, way you can promote yourself as a streamer, as a creator, and as a player. Go sign up there at aiohub.gg. Shout out to custom controllers, custom hand-painted retro controllers, everything you can imagine, computer cases, everything like that. And lastly, last but not least, Cosmic Dust. Can't really see it here. Energy supplements, sleep aid, anxiety, multivitamins, everything you can think of. Insanely good flavors. You can go on direct link on our Twitter or use code Notorious in all caps at checkout. But other than that, thank you very much, Chat, Cade, and more importantly, Ben, thank you very much. We appreciate you for what you do. We'll always continue to support you, and let's take Call of Duty to the top, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. See you, everybody. Thanks for watching.